In a quiet, sunny neighborhood, everything looked perfect. Neatly trimmed lawns, birds singing in the morning, and neighbors waving as they walked their dogs. On one of these peaceful streets lived the Smith family. They were like any other family, loving, careful, and happy. But there was one thing that made their life a little different. Their little daughter, Emma, had asthma. Emma was a bright, cheerful 7-year-old. She loved drawing, riding her little pink bicycle, and spending afternoons in the backyard playing with her stuffed animals. But some days, her asthma made things harder. Sometimes, just running too fast or playing too long would make it hard for her to breathe. For that, she always needed her nebulizer, a small machine that helped her breathe when her chest got tight. Her mom, Lisa, was always careful to keep Emma safe. Every morning, she would check Emma's inhaler, make sure the nebulizer was charged, and remind her daughter to take it easy while playing. Her dad, Jack, was a Marine veteran. He was calm, disciplined, and protective, but also gentle with Emma. He liked to tell her stories about courage and standing up for what is right, always in a way she could understand. On that morning, the sun rose slowly, casting a warm glow over the Smiths' home. Emma sat at the kitchen table, eating her cereal while humming a little tune. Lisa sipped her coffee, glancing at the clock. Jack was in his home office, reviewing some papers for work. Everything seemed normal. There was no hint that anything unusual would happen that day. Emma finished her breakfast and ran to the backyard. She loved the feeling of the sun on her face and the soft grass under her feet. She climbed on the swing, pushed herself high, and laughed. Her laughter was pure and bright, echoing across the quiet street. Lisa watched from the kitchen window, smiling, while Jack glanced up from his work and nodded at Emma. Life felt peaceful, safe, and ordinary. But the calm of that morning was about to change. Unbeknownst to the Smiths, someone in their neighborhood had been watching them. HOA Karen, the head of the Homeowners Association, was a woman known for strict rules and no-nonsense behavior. She believed that everything in the neighborhood had to follow her standards. Lawn decorations, mailbox colors, even small personal items on porches, nothing escaped her notice. And now, she had noticed something at the Smith house. The first sign of trouble came as a knock at the door. It was sharp, firm, and impatient. Lisa thought it might be a neighbor, maybe needing help or wanting to borrow sugar. But when she opened the door, there stood HOA Karen, arms crossed, eyes stern, and lips pressed tight. She didn't smile. She didn't greet. She just looked straight at Lisa. "Good morning," Lisa said cautiously. "Can I help you?" HOA Karen didn't answer immediately. She looked past Lisa, scanning the living room, the kitchen, and then finally, she saw it, the nebulizer sitting neatly on the counter. "That," she said sharply, pointing at the small machine, "is not allowed in our community." Lisa blinked, confused. "Excuse me? It's my daughter's nebulizer. She needs it to breathe. It's a medical device." HOA Karen didn't waver. Rules are rules. No exceptions. Emma, who had been playing in the backyard, ran inside when she heard the voices. "Mom? Who is that?" she asked, looking worried. Lisa crouched down and pulled her daughter close. "It's okay, honey. Just a lady from the neighborhood. She wants to talk." Emma's small eyes widened as she looked at the nebulizer. "But I need it," she whispered. Jack walked in at that moment, sensing the tension immediately. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. HOA Karen stood rigid, acting as if she owned the house. Jack's protective instincts kicked in. He gently held Emma close and looked at Lisa. "What's going on?" Lisa explained quickly, trying to keep calm. "She says the nebulizer isn't allowed." "Can you believe this?" Jack felt a flash of anger. Not allowed, shouting anger, no, this was the kind of anger that made people realize you were serious. He remembered his Marine training, where control and discipline were everything. But this was his daughter's health on the line. That made it personal. HOA Karen cleared her throat and said again, "It must go. Rules apply to everyone." Emma clung to her dad, tears welling up in her eyes. The air in the room seemed to tighten, almost as if the calm morning had vanished in an instant. Something was about to happen that would change the quiet rhythm of their day. The peaceful neighborhood, the sunny backyard, and the cheerful laughter of a little girl, all of it now felt fragile. Jack looked at his family, then back at HOA Karen. He didn't speak yet, but his eyes said it all: nobody messes with his family. And the calm before the storm, well, it was about to end. The doorbell rang again, but this time, it wasn't polite. It was sharp, almost aggressive, slicing through the calm like a warning. Emma had just settled on the couch with her favorite stuffed bunny when Lisa froze. She exchanged a nervous glance with Jack, who had just stepped out of his office. Something in the knock made the hairs on his arms stand up. Lisa opened the door, expecting perhaps a delivery. But it wasn't a package, and it wasn't a friendly neighbor. There she was, HOA Karen, standing like she owned the house, her arms folded, her face tight with that familiar frown that had unnerved more than one neighbor before. But today, there was a new sharpness in her eyes. Something almost dangerous. "I need that," HOA Karen said, pointing directly at the nebulizer sitting on the counter. Her voice was flat, cold, and final. Lisa's stomach dropped. "Excuse me? That's my daughter's nebulizer. She needs it to breathe." "Rules are rules," Karen interrupted. "No exceptions. It has to go." Jack stepped in then, calm at first, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. He put himself between Karen and his family. "I don't think you understand," he said evenly. "This is a medical device. My daughter needs it. She can't go without it." Karen didn't flinch. "I understand perfectly. Rules are rules. Take it away, or I will report you." Emma's small voice trembled from the couch. "Daddy, don't let her take it." She ran to him, clinging to his legs. Her eyes were wide with fear, and Lisa's heart ached watching her. Jack knelt down, holding Emma's hands. "It's okay, baby," he whispered. "Daddy's here. Nobody is taking it from you." Karen's lips tightened into a thin line. Without warning, she stepped closer, her hand reaching for the counter. "It's coming with me," she said, as if it were some prize. Lisa gasped. "You can't do that." But Karen didn't stop. She tried to grab the nebulizer, her fingers closing around it. And then, in an instant, Jack's marine instincts kicked in. He grabbed her hand and pushed her back, not violently, but firmly enough that she stumbled slightly. "Step back," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Now." Karen blinked, surprised. Nobody had ever talked to her like that before, especially not in her own neighborhood. Her frown deepened, but she didn't retreat completely. Instead, her voice sharpened. "You can't tell me what to do." "I just did," Jack replied. "And if you try to touch my daughter's things again, there will be consequences. Understand?" Emma hugged the nebulizer close, her small hands clutching it like a lifeline. Her face was pale, and tears threatened to fall. "Mom, what's happening?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Lisa swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. She looked at Jack, trusting him to handle this. "It's okay, honey. Daddy's not going to let anyone hurt you," she said softly. HOA Karen paused, realizing this was not going to be an easy confrontation. She had expected fear, obedience, and excuses. Instead, she was met with a wall, a Marine veteran, calm, confident, and protective, standing between her and the family she wanted to intimidate. The air in the room was thick, heavy with tension. Emma's small chest rose and fell rapidly, not from asthma yet, but from fear. Lisa clutched her daughter, her heart pounding. The neighborly calm of the morning was gone. In its place was a standoff, an unexpected battle over a small but essential machine that meant life itself to a little girl. Jack's eyes locked on HOA Karen's. "If you think you can take this from my daughter, think again," he said, his voice steady. "This isn't about rules anymore. It's about safety, respect, and common sense. You're crossing a line." Karen's lips tightened, but for the first time, she hesitated. She glanced around, noticing the neighbors peeking from behind curtains, their whispers filling the silence. Something in the air told her this fight wasn't hers to win. Yet, she didn't back down completely. Emma's hands shook as she held the nebulizer, looking up at her dad with wide, scared eyes. In that moment, she didn't need anyone else, her dad was her hero. And Jack, seeing the fear and love in his daughter's eyes, knew one thing clearly: he would not let anyone take her safety away, no matter what rules or threats were thrown at him. The standoff lasted only a few tense moments, but in those moments, everything had changed. The quiet neighborhood, the sunny morning, the ordinary day, they were all gone. The calm before the storm had ended, and the real battle was about to begin. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. The sunlight streaming through the windows seemed weaker, as if the world itself had stopped to watch. Emma's small hands clutched the nebulizer tightly, her chest rising and falling faster than usual, not yet from asthma, but from fear. Jack felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in a long time: pure, protective anger. His Marine training had taught him discipline, control, patience. But this was personal. His daughter's safety was being threatened by someone who had no right, no understanding, no heart. Lisa could see it in his eyes before he even spoke, the quiet storm building. It was the kind of storm that made you listen, that made people hesitate before crossing the line. Jack took a slow, deep breath and knelt down to Emma's level. "It's okay, baby," he said softly, his hand resting on hers. "Daddy's got this. Nobody is going to hurt you or your medicine." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. She trusted him completely. And in that instant, Jack felt the full weight of responsibility. This wasn't just about rules or HOA disputes. This was about protecting his family, standing up when others tried to bully or intimidate them. HOA Karen, sensing the shift, straightened her posture. She tried to look confident, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Jack could see it. He could feel it. She expected fear, hesitation, maybe an apology. She did not expect confrontation. "Step back," Jack said, his voice low but firm. "Now." Karen's lips pressed tight. "I'm just enforcing the rules," she said, her tone sharp. Jack shook his head slowly. "No. You're threatening my daughter's health. That's not a rule, it's wrong." Lisa watched the exchange with a mixture of fear and awe. She knew Jack was calm, but she also knew that the calm before a Marine's action could be terrifying. It was like watching a volcano quietly preparing to erupt. Emma looked up at her dad, her little hands trembling. "Daddy, will she take it?" Jack knelt even closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "Not a chance. I promise you, baby. Nobody is taking this from you. I won't let it happen." HOA Karen, now realizing she might be outmatched in this silent battle of wills, tried a different tactic. She straightened her back and raised her voice. "If you don't comply, I will report you to the HOA board. You'll face fines, penalties." Jack's expression didn't change, but the intensity in his gaze did. "You can report all you want. I've dealt with rules. I've dealt with bureaucracy. But you are not taking what keeps my daughter alive. Understand?" Karen faltered. She glanced at the neighbors watching from behind their curtains. Their whispers and curious stares filled the air like static electricity. Nobody wanted to be involved directly, but everyone could see the tension, the courage, and the injustice. Lisa put her arm around Emma, pulling her close. "See, honey," she whispered. "Daddy won't let anyone hurt you. We're safe." But Jack's mind was already working ahead. He needed to make sure this ended now, before it escalated further. His jaw tightened, and he stood slowly, positioning himself between Karen and his daughter. Every instinct he had as a Marine, every lesson about protecting family and facing threats, surged through him. HOA Karen tried one last time to assert control, stepping closer with a rigid posture. But Jack's calm authority didn't waver. His hand rested lightly but firmly on Emma's shoulder, a silent shield. "Back off," he said simply, but in that simplicity lay absolute certainty. The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Emma's breathing quickened. Lisa's hands trembled. And Karen, for the first time, realized she might have miscalculated. Jack's voice, calm but deadly serious, cut through the quiet. You have a choice. Walk away now, or you'll force me to take steps you won't like. My daughter comes first. Always. And in that moment, the standoff reached its peak. The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. Something was about to happen, something that would decide who truly held the power in this quiet, sunlit house. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Outside, a faint breeze rustled the leaves, but inside the Smith house, time seemed to have stopped. Jack stood tall, Emma clutching the nebulizer at his side, and Lisa held her daughter's hand, her heart pounding. Across from them, HOA Karen's eyes darted around, calculating, judging, trying to find a way to regain control. You don't get it, Karen said, her voice sharp, forced with authority. I'm in charge here. These are my rules, and you will follow them. Jack shook his head slowly, his expression calm but unyielding. You don't understand one thing, he said quietly, the weight of every word pressing down like a hammer. My family's safety comes before your rules. End of story. Karen's lips pressed tight. She stepped closer, as if proximity would force compliance. You'll regret this. You think you're above the rules? Jack took a slow breath and stepped forward himself, closing the small distance between them, not aggressively, but with total confidence. I'm not above the rules. I just follow the rules that make sense, and the ones that protect people. This isn't one of them. For a moment, Karen faltered. She had expected fear, hesitation, maybe excuses. Instead, she was met with calm authority, the kind that demanded respect without yelling. She glanced at Emma, clutching the nebulizer, and suddenly realized just how serious this man was. He wasn't bluffing. Emma's eyes were wide, watching her dad like he was a superhero. Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. She knew Jack could handle this, but seeing the confrontation unfold made her heart race anyway. Step back, Jack said again, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. This ends now. You will not touch my daughter's nebulizer. You will not threaten my family. Walk away, or things get complicated. Karen's face flushed with frustration. Complicated? You think a little device is worth making enemies in the neighborhood? Jack's jaw tightened. It's not just a device. It's my daughter's life. And yes, it's worth every single thing it takes to protect her. Karen's eyes flicked to the windows, where some neighbors had peeked out from behind their curtains. Their whispered conversations floated faintly through the air. She realized she wasn't the only one watching, but her pride refused to let her step back. I could call the HOA board, she said sharply. They'll fine you. They'll force you to comply. Jack's eyes narrowed. Go ahead. Call them. I've dealt with boards, rules, and fines before. You still don't get it. You're threatening my daughter. That's not legal. That's not moral. That's wrong. Lisa felt the tension crackle like electricity. Every second stretched, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Emma hugged the nebulizer even tighter, looking at her dad for reassurance. And Jack, seeing the fear and trust in his daughter's eyes, knew exactly what he had to do next. He took a calm, steady step closer. This ends here, he said. You leave now, or I escalate. You can choose to walk away, or you can face consequences you won't like. My daughter's safety is not negotiable. Karen hesitated. Her face paled slightly as the full force of Jack's authority sank in. For the first time, she felt small, unsure, and exposed. Her mouth opened to speak, then closed again. The standoff stretched on, a tense silence hanging in the air like smoke before a fire. Outside, birds chirped, oblivious to the storm inside the house. Inside, a quiet battle of wills raged, a fight not over rules or devices, but over courage, family, and what it meant to stand up to fear and injustice. Finally, Karen took a reluctant step back, her arms dropping to her sides. She glared, lips pressed tight, but the fight had ended, for now. Jack didn't move. He stood firmly between her and his daughter, his eyes never leaving hers. You made the right choice, he said quietly. Walk away, and leave my family in peace. Karen paused, then turned slowly, her heels clicking against the floor as she walked toward the door. The neighbors outside whispered among themselves, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Emma looked up at her dad, a mixture of relief and awe in her eyes. You protected me, she whispered, hugging him. Jack smiled softly, kneeling to meet her gaze. Always, he said. I promised. The confrontation was over, but the tension remained. The calm had returned, but the neighborhood would never forget the day HOA Karen tried to cross the line and met someone who wouldn't back down. The moment HOA Karen's footsteps faded down the hallway, the house felt strangely quiet. Emma still hugged her nebulizer, but the air was thick with adrenaline. Lisa sank into the couch, clutching her daughter's hand, while Jack stood in the middle of the room, still tense, his eyes scanning every corner as if expecting Karen to turn around. Then came the whispers. Soft, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains and cracked doors, their curiosity mixing with shock. The normally quiet street was suddenly full of silent judgment and hushed chatter. That man, he didn't even raise his voice, one neighbor whispered. And yet, she looked scared. She's always bossy, said another, shaking her head. But today, she got schooled. Some neighbors had been secretly rooting for the Smiths. They admired Jack's calm but firm stance, the way he protected his daughter without losing control. Others worried HOA Karen had a reputation, and crossing her could mean months of disputes or even fines. Yet, no one could ignore what they had just witnessed. Inside, Jack finally exhaled, though his body was still alert. He crouched to Emma's level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You're safe, baby, he whispered. That's what matters. Emma's small voice trembled. Mom, did he go away for good? Lisa smiled weakly, trying to keep her own nerves under control. I think he did, sweetie. For now, we're okay. Outside, HOA Karen had stopped at the sidewalk, glaring back at the house. She tugged at her perfectly ironed blouse, trying to regain composure. But the whispers of the neighbors were louder than any authority she could claim. People were watching, judging, and some, quietly cheering. One neighbor, an elderly man with a cane, muttered, finally, someone stood up to her. Another, younger woman, whispered to her friend, did you see how calm he was? That dad, he didn't even shout. But she knew she couldn't win. Back inside, Jack turned toward the windows, watching the neighbors' reactions. He didn't smile, he didn't need to. The support, even if silent, was enough. But he knew this wouldn't be the end. Karen's pride was her weakness, and she might come back. Lisa leaned against him, still holding Emma close. Do you think she'll try again? She asked softly. Jack shook his head, but his tone was serious. She might. But we're ready. And we won't back down. Emma hugged her dad's leg, her little arms tight around him. Daddy! I'm so glad you were here, she whispered. Jack smiled, brushing her hair gently. Always, baby. No one messes with our family. Not ever. Outside, the neighbors slowly started retreating from their windows, murmuring among themselves. The street returned to its usual quiet, but something had changed. People had seen courage. They had seen a parent who wouldn't bend, and they would remember it. Even HOA Karen, walking back to her car, could feel it, the weight of everyone's eyes on her, the silent judgment of a community that had witnessed the Smiths standing firm. Inside, the Smiths finally relaxed slightly, knowing the battle had been won, for now. The nebulizer was back where it belonged, Emma was safe, and the quiet heroism of a parent had made an unspoken statement to everyone in the neighborhood: courage and love are stronger than rules that make no sense. But even in that calm, Jack knew the story wasn't over. HOA Karen's pride was like a fire, and fires rarely die quietly. The community had seen a victory, but the real test, the one that would challenge their courage, their resolve, and their unity, was still ahead. The quiet of the afternoon shattered like glass. A sharp knock rattled the front door. Jack froze, his eyes narrowing. Emma's grip on her nebulizer tightened. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. HOA Karen had returned. This time, she wasn't just a strict neighbor enforcing rules. She was a storm, brimming with pride, anger, and determination. Her heels clicked loudly against the floor as she stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "I told you this isn't over," she said, her voice cold, sharp, and dangerous. Jack stepped forward, his body a shield between Karen and his daughter. "And I told you before, this ends now. Leave, or I escalate," he said calmly, but every word carried the weight of his Marine training and protective instinct. Karen's lips pressed tight. "You think you can intimidate me? You have no idea who I am." Jack didn't flinch. He leaned slightly closer, his gaze steady. "No, I know exactly who you are. But I also know what's right. And this is wrong." The tension was almost unbearable. Emma clung to the nebulizer, hiding behind her dad. Lisa whispered, "Stay calm, Emma. Daddy's here." Karen's hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with frustration. "Rules exist for a reason," she barked. "I'll report you. You'll face consequences." Jack's voice was steady, calm, and impossible to argue with. "Go ahead. Report me. Call the board. File every complaint you can think of. It won't change one thing. My daughter stays safe. Period." Karen paused, realizing her threats had no effect. Her pride was wounded, her authority challenged. She glanced out the window and noticed the neighbors' eyes on her again. Their whispers had returned, louder now. Some nodding, some shaking their heads, some secretly cheering. The neighborhood was watching. Emma peeked around Jack's leg, wide-eyed. "Daddy, is she really leaving this time?" Jack crouched down, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. "Yes, baby. She's leaving. We're safe. And no one, not even her, can take your medicine." Karen's shoulders slumped slightly. For the first time, the unshakable aura she had carried disappeared. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her eyes flicked at the neighbors, then back at Jack. She realized she had lost. Jack didn't celebrate. He stood tall, unwavering, a calm wall between Karen and his family. "You made the right choice," he said quietly. "Walk away, and leave my family in peace." Karen's glare lingered for a moment, but she finally turned, her heels clicking sharply as she left. The door closed behind her, and a quiet calm returned to the house. Lisa let out a long breath, hugging Emma tightly. "We did it," she whispered. "We're safe." Emma looked up at her dad, eyes shining with awe and relief. "Daddy, you saved me." Jack smiled softly, brushing her hair from her face. "Always," he said. "I promised." Outside, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. Everyone had seen courage, seen a father who would not back down, a family who protected what mattered most. Even HOA Karen, walking back to her car, could feel it, the weight of judgment, respect, and silent admiration. Inside, the Smiths finally relaxed. The nebulizer was back, Emma was safe, and for now, the storm had passed. But Jack knew one thing: some battles never fully end. Pride and stubbornness are powerful things. But courage, love, and family, they are stronger. And in that moment, Jack felt something he hadn't felt before in years: absolute certainty. His family was safe. And no one, not even HOA Karen, would ever take that away. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm golden light across the Smiths' living room. After the chaos, the house felt peaceful again, almost like a bubble that had protected them from the storm outside. Emma sat on the couch, her nebulizer beside her, safe and sound. She traced the edges of it with her small fingers, as if confirming it was real, as if saying silently, "Nothing can take this away now." Lisa sat next to her daughter, holding her hand gently, still feeling the echo of tension from earlier. "We're okay now," she whispered. "You're safe, and your medicine is safe too." Emma looked up at her dad, wide-eyed. "Daddy, you were amazing," she said, hugging him tightly. Jack smiled softly, kneeling beside her. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. Always, baby. I told you I would protect you. That's my job. He looked around the room, noticing how quiet and calm it had become. The standoff with HOA Karen had ended. For now, peace had returned to their home. But Jack knew something more had happened than just a confrontation about rules or devices. Something deeper had changed, something that no fines or regulations could touch. Outside, neighbors walked past slowly, their heads turned toward the Smith house. Some gave a nod of acknowledgement. Some whispered quietly to each other. The message had spread: courage matters. Family matters. Standing up for what's right matters. Jack stood by the window, watching the street bathe in the soft glow of the evening sun. The neighborhood might try to follow rules strictly, but today had reminded everyone that human decency and protection come first. Lisa placed a hand on his shoulder. You did more than protect Emma, she said softly. You reminded everyone that some rules shouldn't hurt people. Jack nodded. Sometimes, you have to stand firm. Sometimes, people need to see that some lines aren't meant to be crossed. Today, Emma saw it. And that's what matters most. Emma climbed into Jack's lap, still hugging her nebulizer. Daddy. I was scared, she admitted, her voice tiny. Jack hugged her close. I know, baby. But courage isn't about never being scared. Courage is about facing fear to protect the people you love. Lisa smiled, a tear sliding down her cheek. The family huddled together, feeling stronger than ever. The tension, the confrontation, the standoff, it had all led to this moment. They were a team. Unshakable. United. HOA Karen was gone, at least for now. But the Smiths didn't worry anymore. They had learned something valuable: standing up for what's right, protecting your loved ones, and facing fear head-on were far more powerful than any rules a stranger could enforce. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the backyard where Emma had played earlier that morning, the family felt a quiet pride. Not in defeating someone, not in arguing rules, but in knowing that love, courage, and family always come first. Emma looked up at her parents with a small smile. Can we go play now? She asked, her innocence shining like a light. Jack chuckled softly. Yes, baby. Let's play. The day is finally ours again. Lisa joined in the laughter, and for the first time since morning, the house felt completely safe, completely warm, and completely theirs. The storm had passed, and with it came a simple truth: courage, love, and standing up for what matters most will always win in the end.